Hey, this is Mike with Christian Meds. This is the 8th part of the knowledge branch of the occult breakdown. So we're finishing up the knowledge branch. This week we're going to cover reading tea leaves, telepathy, and witching. So let's get started. So let's start out with reading tea leaves. Well, reading tea leaves falls under a lot of the same type of things where people are basically trying to read your horoscope or anything else. I mean, it's just another form of the same types of practices, trying to get some sort of insight into you. You know, a lot of these things can be, demons whispering in somebody's ear, or it could just be somebody just playing a con. Same type of thing. But basically this time they end up straining out the tea leaves and then allowing them to make a pattern in the bottom of certain types of teacups that they try to interpret and then basically give you some sort of special insight that you wouldn't have otherwise. This is another one of these unproven sciences. It's really just something demonic either whispering in somebody's ear because they have been around for a long time. And they do know a lot of things, or it is just somebody playing a con on somebody, just trying to separate you from your money. So it's certainly something that should be avoided, and something you never want to give any power over yourself, because it can definitely lead down to some dark paths. Then when it comes to telepathy, so in other words, basically it's a mind-to-mind communication of thoughts, ideas, feelings, or images, and it comes from the Greek word tele, which means distance, and pathy, which means feeling. So it's like two Greek words put together. So when it comes to this is one of these things where I really do believe that some people have a insight into being able to at least get strong impressions of people, and a lot of this just is more what I would call let's try that again. A lot of this is what I would call neuro-linguistic programming, where basically you can tell by people the way they stand and the way they present themselves. A lot of times you can get feelings, and you can end up making educated guesses on people and come on as telepathic. Sometimes you're even doing this subconsciously. You're not even, doing it in a conscious state. But this is one of these things where it's one of these things where I don't want to classify it just as an occult practice. It's more just understanding and being aware of what's around you. A lot of stuff that Tony Robbins teaches when it comes to, neuro-linguistic programming and a lot of his stuff, he's really trying to make a positive impact in the world. He's, raising money and feeding people. He's doing all kinds of things that are positive. Now, would you say that what he's doing is telepathy? Well, certainly he's able to read people in a very quick manner, and he's able to basically get down to the heart of the issue, whether it's, and if you've ever watched any of his videos, you can certainly see that he has control over the conversation. And he tries to use it in a positive manner. So not everybody who's doing telepathic work, or neuro-linguistic programming is really trying to do something negative in somebody's life. So this is one of these things that becomes very gray when it comes to, are you really picking up on somebody's thoughts, or are you just noticing the patterns? And because you're a pattern expert, you can, then make assumptions on what direction you want to steer a conversation. And there are techniques and ways that you can be trained to do these types of things. That is really, it is a power branch and can be used wickedly. So you definitely need to know who you're dealing with, and if people are aware of these things, understand the power of asking certain questions. They understand the power of what words they use, and you know, there really is a truth aspect of this that that can be used in either a positive or a negative way. So then the last one here is witching. Well, witching is definitely probably the most part of the occult. Is basically, and it's a large enough subject I can make a whole series of videos just on witching. Just, you know, what it is, how it works, the way people do things. There are hundreds of symbols, hundreds of incantations. Some of them have become quite mainstream in society, and people don't even realize that they are actually part of witching, part of, you know, basically trying to bewitch people. Even just on the back of our dollar bill in America, you know, the all-seeing eye, that is a witching symbol. And if you don't understand that, then you could easily be influenced by it. Once you understand what it is, and you understand that where it is and what its role is, you can then put it in its correct place. Now some things, even like a pentagram, which is also a witching symbol, was also a Platonist symbol. So when you start realizing that not everything that's a symbol can be used for both, some things are used in increments, like basically a pentagram can be used for incommensurability, or it can be used for occult practices. So sometimes people are like, oh, that's pagan, or that's Wiccan, or that's trying to bewitch people. Where really, the way the Platonists used it, it was really basically understanding the pattern that God has laid out in the world. You know, understanding that because of the electromagnetic spectrum, that basically it's like a big donut shape that is around the Earth, and that same, you know, donut shape ends up, if you peel an orange, you end up seeing that same donut shape and things like that. That's really the way the Platonists used it, and the way that they did it through a pentagram symbol is that they basically kept saying, well, if you draw it this way, then this subdivides into this, that subdivides into this, that subdivides into this, and what it does is it just keeps telling you that it's really a fractal pattern that keeps going on and on and on, which is different than witching. But because witching has certain symbols which are used demonically, some of these things become very confusing on what you're talking about. Some people wanted to use a blanket statement and say, these symbols are Wiccan, I don't want to use them. These symbols have witching powers behind them, I don't want to use them, I don't want them in my house, this, that, and the other thing. But people don't really understand where they came from, they don't understand how people have used them in past centuries, all those types of things. So that basically finishes up the part on the knowledge branch. And the last one, it was just a very top level of what my beliefs are on some of that. But really, when it comes to this list that was all laid out by Derek Prince, you know, some of them have nuances that people want to just blanket a statement and say it's part of the occult, when sometimes these things are more part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and you can produce knowledge from that, and you can improve your life from that, but it really comes down to understanding what it is behind some of these things. And the big thing is, the majority of this you should avoid, you know, but let's have an intelligent conversation about what you should and shouldn't do, you know, instead of just having this irrational fear of everything across the board, and then making allegations against people, you know, when you don't know what their heart's about, when you don't know what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to do. So I hope some of this was enlightening for people. I hope that they enjoyed this series. And next week I'm going to start talking about power amulets. I'm not sure exactly how many videos are going to be on part of that, but basically we're going to break down, what are amulets in general, what kind of forms they can take, and that's a big part of the occult also. You find a lot of those in New Age stores, and a lot of those things we just need to talk about also. So I hope you enjoyed this video this week. I hope you have a blessed week, and we'll talk to you next week.